Yeah, and of course, Eran Hafner is a 18 years experienced, seasoned business coach who does not take no for an answer when it comes to his client's success. Absolutely does not even consider failure of his clients as an option. He's one of the most forceful and yet connected and warm-hearted coaches I have ever seen in terms of business and in terms of life coaching as well. And I'm going to learn from him. He's spent about the same time coaching as I've spent being an attorney, as a practitioner since 2003, and then I believe in 2011, master practitioner. And then recently we completed our trainers training certifications as NLP trainers just a week ago.
Right.
And thank you. It kind of goes to show that this is the kind of training that is actionable intelligence. And that's a theme that keeps coming up. It's not just something you learn and you put away on a shelf. You could, but you're really going to have to turn a blind eye to the power of it if you're going to do that. So immediately we're in action. We can't wait to share what we've learned and bring value to everyone who gets to hear us today. And so let's begin.
Let's begin. So, what is NLP? I think that's the very basic thing we need to establish first, because that was the question that you asked me outside, right?
Yeah.
So, NLP is basically a science and an art. A science and an art of excellence. So you take excellence in any shape or in any aspect of life, and when you see something that works really well that you want to adopt, you copy and paste, just like the computer. Because in the end of the day, our mind is a computer. So if somebody is programmed to do something in the right way that produce good results, we can just program our mind to do the same thing.
Not if they have it in the wrong way, though. If they have it in the right way, yeah.
Right. If they have it in the wrong way, you want to stay away from ordering those. So this is for me on NLP in one sentence. Of course, it covers a lot of depth and a lot of different techniques. However, before we get the techniques, I really like and adopted one of the sentences that my teacher, Dr. Ted James, said, that before all the techniques, NLP is an attitude. Before all techniques, before everything else, NLP is first of all an attitude of curiosity, an attitude of learning, an attitude of be better version of yourself, an attitude of excellence. And unfortunately, not too many people in the world share this attitude. So that's where we come in place, isn't it?
And it creates a huge market, obviously. And so, not many people have the at heart, they haven't taken to heart just the acceptance that I think you're pointing to at the core of NLP. Accepting yourself as having everything that you have, that you need in order to succeed. Accepting everyone you encounter, whether you're coaching someone or you're encountering someone in business, that they also are doing the best with the resources they have. And they have all the resources they need to succeed. So if anything, NLP is more about taking what's unconscious and extracting from it the actual process that then you can use consciously, and whether it's from one area of your life where you are excellent, mm-hmm. and you want to take that excellence and replicate it across another area of your life, modeling yourself from that area and transferring that to another area is one of the biggest things that one can do with NLP, and it's a good thing to do that.
And that's a great point that you bring up, because that brings me to the model of operators, which is how we form rules in our life, in our mind. Because when we were in Las Vegas in the training, you pointed out a sentence that I was keep saying about different things that I would like to learn.
Yes.
And I was saying, I must own this skill.
I must own
this skill.
Yes, and it wasn't even what you were saying. It's also how you were saying it, because there was the complete clarity. The way you said it, was I must own this skill about surfing. I think you said that.
It was about surfing, it was about magic, it was about judo, it was about everything that I do in life. It's about NLP, it's about my business, it's about everything. I must own this skill. And here comes the question that I just learned it, in the practice. Do you love yourself enough
Oh yes.
in order to do whatever it takes to get what you want?
Absolutely.
And if there's no congruency in the answer, then the answer is no. Because it's not about what you want and what you dream. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice, in order to reach your goals. NLP is not a magical word that you just say something and it become real. Yes, you say something and it become real because you work hard, and one of the elements that you measure your values and your success in anything or progress in anything is consistency.
So NLP is basically a tool which will help you succeed in any area of life that you decide you set a goal and you can reach it easily in every aspect of your life. And NLP just give you knowledge that you can use in everyday life to make your goal closer to reach it. Right.
Definitely.
Yes.
And
the way I
yes.
look at NLP is that it's the language of your mind. How do you, not just your mind, others also, how do you talk to yourself and process information in your mind to produce the positive results that you want in the shortest amount of time? And how do you talk to others to create a win-win situation so that you will create actions and you get positive results?
that's exactly
I really
true.
like that that definition too. That's the way you talk to yourself and the way you talk to others. And it turns out those two are strikingly similar in what works in the way you talk to yourself and what works in the way you talk to others.
Because God created all of us the same way.
It's
It's the same computer.
Last time I asked him, that's what he said. Yes.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
the same computer.
It's the same computer.
We've got the
Sure.
same hardware.
that's right.
It's the software that keeps getting a bug into it, and we gotta get that bug out through NLP.
Exactly.
And just like bugs in the real world, right? What's a bug to one person is a feast to another, depending on what culture you're in. There are cultures that eat bugs for lunch and dinner, right? And so one of the unwritten presuppositions, and NLP has a lot of written down assumptions that underlie, give it its real strength, almost like if it had a constitution, it would be made of these, depending on how you count them, 18 or so presuppositions.
Yes, and those presuppositions, in my opinion, the way that I see them, it's the basic rule that you must operate from in order to be more successful using all the techniques of NLP. For example, the first presupposition is always respect the other person model of the world.
That's a key one. That's a real big one.
And
That's a very key one.
that's a very, very key one, because
Very
without
key one.
that, you don't even give permission to the other to think differently than you, and that by itself break rapport and break communication. So the fact that I allow somebody to think differently than me does not mean in any way that I have to agree with the way he thinks or with what he thinks. It just means that I accept that there are different opinions than mine. And that's the beginning of the negotiation or the conversation or whatever. That's the beginning point. Another basic presupposition that is very, very important
Before we
in
move
my
on,
opinion.
may I say one on that first one? So it's permission. It gives you, you mentioned rapport, and it also gives you access, right? In fact, it's the only thing that gives you access to anywhere someone is. You can't hold your hand in the shape of an orange and try to pick up a banana, right? You've got to hold your hand in the shape of a banana to pick up a banana, or vice versa, right? So if you want to access someone in terms of coaching them, and in the business context, if you want to influence someone in making a sale, if you want to influence a client to sign up, if you want to influence a judge to believe your side of the case, it does you zero good to approach them from where your model of the world is, because that's what everyone does, and that's why it's a toss-up, right? Usually. Instead, you want to approach them from exactly where they are standing. That's the only access you have. Please continue.
And that's a beautiful point
What I
because
wanted to add also before you
Yes,
move on
please.
to that is respecting other people's model of the world gets rid of your limitations. It opens your mind. It makes you an open-minded person. That there are other points of views and there's value to that. It doesn't mean that you will accept it, but it makes your mind expand and see, yes, there are other things around me. So I look at that and I say, if you don't respect someone's model of the world, that means you have a tunnel vision, you become closed-minded. So for me, accepting that was very, very huge because it just, you look at people differently, you look at the world differently
That is so
when
true.
you adopt that.
That is so. You do look at the world differently, and actually, once you start looking at other people's models of the world and respecting them as such, at some point in your NLP training, it may happen that you begin to turn that towards yourself, and also see your way of seeing the world as just another model that you respect.
Yes.
So then the question is, how do I make change for myself? Well, the only way I can make change for myself to get myself towards my goals and become excellent in X, Y, or Z is to accept the way, to respect rather, not accept, to respect the current model of the world that I have and to work inside that model to now get to a better model. You have to have a starting point even for yourself and to understand it's just another model and you can always improve it.
Yes.
you can improve and you can adopt a different model.
Yes,
If you
of course.
see a model that works better and produce the results that you want, you just want to adopt that model, and that's what NLP is all about. Because when you start to respect the other person of the model of the world, and like you said, when you do rapport and communicate with people, just like I said in my lecture, it's not the meaning of the communication, it's the communication of the meaning that is
Oh, that's great.
important.
Yeah. That takes us to another very important presupposition of NLP that's going to be very important to litigators, to advocates of all kinds, is that the meaning of communication is the response that you get. Not at all what you may have intended, may have even said literally. It's the response that you get that is the meaning of communication. Now, is that true?
What response do you want? So what response do you want?
So what I-
And that's the main, and you know,
Yes, what response do you want? And that's going to shape what communication you give. So please.
and that's
Yes.
funny enough because most of the people that you talk to don't know what they want. They know very good what they don't want. They know very good what they're afraid of. And they find it very hard to talk about what they really want. Most people didn't even stop to think about what they really want and what's important for them in their life. They're not even aware of their own values.
Well, I mean, if you're a child whose parents were in traffic so long that that's where you were born, imagine that. I mean, imagine you were born in the middle of a traffic jam because it was such a long traffic jam. And from the time you open your eyes, everyone's staring at the license plates in front of them, and nothing's moving, and everyone's stuck. And so all everyone knows is we're going generally in this direction, and so is everybody else. But if you ask anybody, where do you want to get off? Where are you going? What's your destination? Most people would be clueless. Now,
Wait,
And
that's
that-
the
that's
only
also
world you
true, I
see,
think.
and that's the only thing you know.
that's the only thing you know.
Exactly.
Yes. And in that model of the world, you respect that.
Yes,
Of course.
absolutely.
So NLP is to open your mind. When you start to learn NLP, you start actually to ask better question, I think. And you start to question everything around you, how it makes whatever it is better. Because the entire thinking become positive, and once you start to implement it and apply it in your own life, it just become a way of thinking. Just like people think bad all the time, there are people that think good all the time and positive all the time. And not all of them knows NLP, because NLP, it's not invented the wheel, it's just modeling successful people in order to be able to teach everybody how to be more successful in whatever they choose. It can be in a sport, it can be as a lawyer, it can be as whatever it is.
I love the word positive. He used the word positive. It's not just that it's good and comes with good feelings. Although that's important. There's really no use in NLP. And I'm going back to the time of one of Shole's perhaps reluctant favorites, I will say. I categorize, and this is how I can categorize Richard Bandler, right?
Yes.
A reluctant favorite of yours, I would say, right? In a sense, right?
Although I thank him for putting all this together.
I thank him deeply. I owe him a debt of gratitude, as does anyone who likes to actually make change with NLP. He's one of the original founders of NLP. He came up with the idea of submodalities. I mean, the man is a part creator of NLP, and the idea of he says, most therapy, and most times you go to any kind of therapist, they're so obsessed with trying to figure out what got you so messed up in the first place. Let's go back into your past. Let's go into your childhood. Let's figure out who planted the seeds of your current destruction. That's the sort of the method. And
what's wrong with you?
What's wrong
and then
with
let's
you?
talk about it.
And then let's talk about it. How do you feel about that, right?
And they just bury you in the experience all over again and again and again until the hour is over.
Right down there, and then you leave the session. They pride themselves. And I don't know if you've ever been to a therapist, but I have. I went like 12 years, right? I would eventually start taking a box of tissues for the guy to cry because he was, and he told me, why are you bringing a box of tissues? You expect to cry this time? I said, no, this is for you because you've been doing this for 12 years on me and you've been completely useless. No. So you can cry about that
But
model.
that's more or less true.
It is, and that model is different than what NLP uses. NLP is based on the idea that whatever happened to you in the past, and it's the best thing about the past is that it's over. And so the best thing about the future is that you get to create it. And you get to create it with everything you have right now. And positive, which is the word that Eran used, it means not only that it's not negative, meaning it's not, you're not bringing back trauma, you're not bringing back bad feelings, they're useless to creating a future.
You start all over.
Yeah, you're starting from exactly where you are and positing something. So when you say in NLP, we understand that the unconscious mind, that thing that runs your heart as you sleep at night and runs your breathing as you sleep at night, that mind doesn't understand anything that's in the negative. So if you say, I don't want to get fat, you're going to get fat. If you say, I don't want to be late, you're going to be late. And yet if you say positive things, if you posit something, if you say something that is a fact, an actual thing that you do want, that's the only language it understands. Go ahead. You were going to say something.
I wasn't,
unconscious mind for us, we call it a genie.
I call it a genie too.
Whatever you want.
Yes.
When you say, I don't want something, it doesn't hear the negative negation and it goes and gets you what you said you don't want. And you say, well, I said I don't want this. But the unconscious mind doesn't hear the don't. It says, no, let me deliver to you what you just said. So you get that negative thing that you said. Sometimes in life we do have to use negative language, but we also have to follow it up with what is it that we want. I don't want this, but I want that. This.
I want this instead. And
Yes.
you were going to say something brilliant because I could see that glimmer in your eye. May I just add one point here before you say that is Google, right? Or as Muhammad would say, Google. And I love that guy. So if you use your unconscious mind roughly the same way you'd use Google, you'll get the idea. So if you go into Google and you write not an elephant, what are you going to get? You're going to get an elephant. You're not going to get a giraffe. Because Google also deletes the not. Really, you say not the
And it says not missing.
and this
yes,
is
exactly.
and this is exactly what we said
Not missing,
earlier.
exactly.
And this is exactly what we said earlier about the programs of the mind, because that's exactly one of the main programs of the mind that people don't know how to use. They use it in negative, however it does not produce results in negativity. And still they keep using it that way. Why? That's what they learned. That's how they were trained. That's how the school teaches us. That's how the society teaches us. So you really need to step out of the box in order to recognize, how you really talk to yourself first, and then of course, how do you talk to others, and how productive your language is. Because the L of NLP is the linguistic part.
That's right. It's always productive, I would say. It's just, is it producing the thing you want, or is it producing something that you did not want? I tell my son this. I say, listen, you've got, 2 nights ago, as I was putting him to bed, he's 4 years old, and I get to have these one-on-one talks with him. And I was opening up the subject of NLP. And during my master practitioner, every single night, I would get him on FaceTime. I was in Henderson, Nevada, taking the master prac course with the Tad James Company, and he was in LA. And every night I'd get on FaceTime with him and say, Daddy's over here learning superpowers. And do you want to learn a superpower? So the first night I taught him the peripheral vision and the learning state.
Oh, that's a smart. Fantastic.
Yeah. So he calls it hakalau, which is the other name for it. And this kid, I'm telling you, kids get this stuff so fast, not just because, my kid is smart. I like to think I have a genius kid, and perhaps I do. It's just that inside of each one of us, there is a genie, our unconscious mind, and there is a genius, an absolute genius. And we spend most of our lives putting crap on top of this genius until he's suffocating underneath it and can't get a thing out. And so the kids don't have that yet. He's 4 years old. He hasn't even built his entire unconscious yet. So when I tell him something, when I teach him something, he immediately is on top of it. I say, just go into peripheral vision. He does his fingers. He raises his fingers up, and he gets himself into peripheral vision. And we go to the village the next day in Topanga. It's like a nice little hangout area, and he wants to run across a stone path. And I say, Dario, that's his name. I say, Dario, remember Hakala? He says, oh yeah, I have my Hakala on all the time now, because I told my genie. He says, I told my genie to just keep me in Hakala all the time. And he came up with just asking his. So this is. He is an NLP master in a way, simply not because he knows a lot, but because he knows very little that would get in his way. I'll leave it at that.
So I refer to that as we have 2 genies, one of the right shoulder and one of the left shoulder. The one of the right shoulder always tell us, yes, you can, go for it, you are smart, you are this. And the other one tell us exactly the opposite. Don't do it. It's too dangerous. It's not for you. You're gonna fail. Everybody's gonna laugh at you, and give you all the reasoning and really good one. He plays on your emotions. All the good ones in order for you not to do what you wanted to do with the other genie. And unfortunately, most people listen to the negative one. And that's
got a voice that just keeps going on.
And that's because people, funny enough, will do twice as much effort to avoid pain than they will do in order to gain pleasure.
Oh yeah. It's ironic, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
I was watching something by a good, I would say at this point I feel like he's a friend of mine, and I don't know if he's NLP trained at all. And again, NLP is not about finding someone else who's NLP trained. It's not a clique. It's not a sect. It's not a thing. It's a method of human excellence, accelerated by techniques and these methodologies that we're talking about. It's how do you get excellence out of anyone. So when we see excellence in someone, even if we have no clue if they have NLP under their belt, it's still valuable. So I mentioned to you Alex, and I won't say his last name, but you know the Alex I'm talking about.
Yes,
So
Alex almost.
Yes. Amazing. And he was talking about these limiting decisions that limit us from going from one level of productivity in business. Let's say we're making $100,000 a year, we want to go to $1 million a year in revenue. And he said that most of the time when he talks to, he's also a business consultant, he says most of the time when we talk to business owners, they say, well, everyone in my, let's say advertising space, everyone is making $100,000 a year in revenue. So that's how much I can make. And that's a limiting decision. And his perspective is, listen, if there are 20 of you, and each of you is making on average $100,000, there's no reason why one of you can't take everyone's business and do $2 million a year. Is there? If one of you is
It's-
doing
it's
it
just
better
a
than
decision.
everyone,
At some point, someone makes a decision. Someone tells you
Right.
something, and then you choose.
then you choose.
To accept that. You choose to accept that. You make that decision. So that becomes a limiting belief, limiting decision for us.
I work with attorneys on a daily basis who are they've been living inside of a single limiting decision for probably 20 years in the same job. Then they're frustrated, they're not happy with it, and they've made it into something real. They've made it into something where, I must be in this job, I have no advancement, I can't take the risk of leaving the job, I can't strike out on my, all these kinds of things that are limiting decisions for them. And so for a lot of them, it really is a lot of suffering, and it's hard. And Eran pointed out something very important. He says, it's difficult. Well, it is hard to be broke, and it's also hard to succeed. And this is something that Alex said that really resonated with me. He said it's, sure, it's hard to wake up at 4 a.m. and be on top of your goals and to be successful. It is hard. It's also very hard to be broke. So pick your hard. Which one do you want to do?
What are you willing to do to get the result you want?
And is there anything? Are you willing to do absolutely anything?
Yeah. What are you willing to do?
And
If someone tells you stand on your head and you will succeed, yeah, standing on my head, it is very hard for me. However, if you want to get to the goal, you got to take action. And from what my experience has been, that people come to coaches, people go through the training, and they think it's like an injection into them.
Yeah.
Right.
That, now that I've gone through this training, I don't have to do anything. Everything is going to happen to me. No, one of the most essential things that anybody has to do is to take action. Whatever that we learn, you got to take action. You got to practice it. You got to implement it. You got to live it.
And that's true. That is true. But you've read something
I
very
wrote,
cool here.
regarding what you said, it's like the book The Secret. People tell me, I know everything you teach. I read the book The Secret. That's wonderful,
Yes. But
The secret is beautiful, but
How is
sitting
it
and imagining, somebody that is working in McDonald's making $2,000 a month can sit after work on the couch and play Sony PlayStation as much as he wants and imagine that he's going to make next month $10,000. It's just not going to happen if he's not going to take the necessary step and will understand that he has to sacrifice the playing time in learning new skills that can make him the $10,000, and that it's a process. Just sitting on the couch will not get him where he wants.
The great
That's
thing, though,
expanding your comfort zone. People don't want to step out of their comfort zone.
you
They
know,
think that, okay, I'm here and
Yeah.
that's it.
Why
And
not?
stepping out, it is difficult because you know what? You're trying something new. You're changing things. And you can look at it that it's difficult, or you can look at it that it's an exciting thing. I don't believe that things are difficult. They're only difficult if you make a decision that they are difficult.
And you know what they tell us in practitioner and master practitioner?
So
They say,
to me, it's like, okay, you made a decision. That's fantastic.
Right.
Now, let's see how easily you can get there. Only make it as difficult as it is as you want it to be difficult.
that's
And
the
that's
key
the
word.
and that's the sentence
yes.
that is on my wall. The
Thank
hardest
you.
thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity. And this is was said by Amelia Earhart. She knows what she's talking about.
I think so. I think so. There is a light, not at the end of the tunnel. Well, there is no end of the tunnel. Is what
There's always more.
There's always more.
There's always more.
The great thing I've found, and this is something I've discovered. I've never actually shared it with Shole, who is I credit with having me get practitioner in such a deep level. Thank you for that, for starting me on this path, on this journey. There's something I haven't even shared with Eran. It's this. There is a lot of reward along the way. So it works like this. You learn a little bit more about all the things some of the things that are holding you back. Just some of the things, right? You let go of a couple limiting decisions. And then in the process of doing that, you realize, hey, if I can let go of that one, I can let go of this one too. And maybe I can let go of all of them. And then even if you haven't let go of the other ones yet, is you're just starting your training and starting your exposure, just the fact that you got rid of something that you thought was permanent, right? And just made it disappear gives you not only confidence, but it also gives you a higher sense of self-worth. Because you realize under all the layers of decisions and things that have been holding you back from your actual action, from getting into action, there's a genius waiting to jump into action. And it's something that's been sort of being held back by these limiting decisions. So I agree with Shore
It's
that
very empowering. It's very
Absolutely.
empowering. It's getting results, and when you get results, what do? You build your confidence, your productivity goes up, you're empowered. You know that, oh, okay, I can create change in my life, not only your own life, but everybody else around you also. Because as you change, the world around you changes.
that's right.
And I think that the greatest thing
That's
that
right. That's so
that's
right.
absolutely right. And I think that for me, the biggest thing that NLP did for me in my life, it introduced me to my best friend that I didn't know exists, which is my unconscious mind. And that by itself is a huge change.
Yes.
Because until then I was operating only 10% of my capacity, and if at all, and now I can do way more. So thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Did you get to know your? For me, it was being introduced to the thing that was sometimes my best friend, and sometimes when I was unaware of it, it was just the driver that was unseen, and I was just a passenger. And so there's a saying that as long as the unconscious mind remains unconscious, we call it fate. And there's also a story about a couple of ants. They were very, very dedicated ants. You know how ants are very hardworking, right? They carry leaves 10 times their own weight.
Very hardworking.
Anything for the queen.
Yes.
They make great royal citizens, right? British citizens, right? The ideal British. So there, these two ants that decide one day that they're going to succeed, and the way to succeed is to go north towards where the honey is. And so they march along this road, going north, north, north. Every single day at the crack of dawn, they're marching. They rest very little. They keep marching, very determined. And yet they keep looking, and the tree gets farther and farther away, the honey tree. So they wonder to themselves, why are we marching so fast and with such dedication? And we keep getting further and further from the tree. And then the elephant under them that they were riding on the back of says, because he's walking south. So it really
Yeah. So there goes your conscious unconscious have to be aligned.
Yeah.
Going the same direction. Because usually what happens to us is that our conscious mind is going to the right and our unconscious is going to the left.
That's right.
And getting those to align to go in one line, that's really, really important. And actually NLP gets you to do that.
It gives
By
you the
recognizing
tools. Yeah.
It
who
gives you the
are,
tool, and
how do I do what I do, and how do I change it? It gives you all the techniques, all the tools that you need to go to get the results that you want and create a win-win situation. I mean, I've heard this from some people that they say, oh, NLP is very manipulative. You bet. If you want to use it manipulatively, what's your intention?
Well, I want to manipulate myself into becoming a billionaire. Is that okay? I want to manipulate my clients into becoming successful beyond their dreams and beyond what they thought was possible. Is that okay?
There are skeptics out there that they think that, oh, NLP is manipulative. Well, if I had a hammer and my intention was to put a nail on the wall, it would do the job. Or if my intention was to hurt somebody on the head, that can be done too.
That's right.
A hammer can be also manipulative too. So it all depends on the intention of people, how they use it.
I like to give.
And we like to believe in our group, I mean, we're all trained by the same people, that it's a win-win situation.
And when the situation's win-win, there is no manipulation.
Win-lose situations.
That's right.
Win-win situation.
Let me ask you, Anastasia.
May I share something before we begin? Because I on that point of manipulation. So, when I was taking my master practitioner course, before I left, I told my wife, I said, listen, I'm going to be gone for 2 months, and I thought, in my model of the world, before master practitioner, that I need to save up money because I'm going to have 2 months of no income. And the reality was that in the first 4 days of my master practitioner course, I had more income from my regular work as an attorney, in the cases I already had, than I had in the past 2 months of actual money coming in. Now, some of it was collecting bills that I just let sit for a while. Some of it was settling cases that seemed impossible to settle just a few days before. And the way it turned out is that, after the first 2 days of Master Practitioner, I felt really that I had the tools so I could design a conversation within 3 minutes over lunch and then call the opposing counsel and settle the case on the terms that I wanted for my client. Now, Shoda pointed out that there is a lot of power, and yes, one could use it to manipulate. And the interesting thing is, at least for me, is that when I realized that I have so much power to craft a conversation to go exactly where I want, I could get an unfair result in my favor, in my client's favor. And so that's something to really be aware of for me, because my intention is not, this is winning a case for me or getting a great result is not the end all and be all of my life purpose, right? Mm-hmm. It's really personal growth, and I've got a different value system than that. I want to do an excellent job, and I want to get a fair result. So what I did was I tempered what I could do with what I want to do and what was ecological for myself, and a great result for my client, but also not leaving the other side feeling burned. Mm-hmm. And so I crafted it that way, and we achieved that result, 28 minutes long. So, yeah.
You need first to create a better version of yourself, and then be able to help people. I think NLP will be most beneficial for attorneys to help them first work on themselves and create a better world for others.
Yes, that's a very
and
good
when
point.
they will learn, that's a great point, and when they will learn that in negotiation and in litigation, you first look not for the disagreement, but for the common ground,
Yes.
and then chunk up from there for the intention of coming to the litigation, then it will be much easier for the client as well as for the lawyers, to come in an agreement that everybody can live with, because in the end of the day, nobody is happy 100% with any agreement, Well, if you get to an agreement that all the sides can live good with it,
Yeah.
then that's a win-win situation, isn't it? And it's not about fighting. It's about finding common ground. It's not about fighting.
Even resolving a dispute, even if you're not in a mediation setting, right? Even if you're just resolving it one-on-one, in that particular situation I had, I identified the problem, and Shoda, you'll appreciate that. We had just learned in the first 2-3 days of Master Practitioner, we had learned about values levels, and so without getting into it, but suffice it to say, by the time I got out, just after that second and third day, I had such a clear lens to see all of the participants in this litigation, which was, what value level is the attorney that I'm dealing with at, and at what value level currently is his client. And I realized that's why no matter what we offered to the attorney, he would want to go with it, except that the client would then
He cannot deliver the idea to the
Couldn't
client.
do it.
He cannot deliver the idea to the client.
So I explained without using jargon. I explained to him that this situation is something that I want to resolve. There's 4 of us involved: me as the attorney, my client, then that other attorney, and his client. And 3 out of 4 litigants agree this case should settle. The 3 out of 4 dentists agree that this gum is good for you. I said this is so. How do we get that 4th person to be on board and actually buy into this and really be okay with it? So I came up with this solution, which was really I would never have done before. I said, listen, I will come up with the payment terms. You come up with the amount. He said, what do you mean I come up with the amount? You want me to make you an offer? I said, no. You're going to give me the number that you tell me is going to work for your client for sure, and you're going to be able to pick up the phone with confidence, and without me having to even follow up with you, that he's going to settle for that number. And he picked the number. He didn't pick a number that was sky high. He picked the number. In fact, he picked the number that was better than what I expected and what I was aiming for. And he was just so sort of stunned by that conversation. He said, "Okay," and he knew exactly what he needed to do to get it done. So it gives you a lens of clarity, and almost like having the cheat codes in a game. To know, if I push this button, that's going to happen. I knew exactly how the conversation was going to turn out, I was open to anything else, but I was really clear, and it turned out exactly that way. And that's the kind of clarity that let me cut through. All of my cases are now settled that I have pending before going to MasterPack. All of them.
I have a question for Anastasia.
Sure.
These conversations is giving you a view of how NLP can change someone's life and how they feel about themselves and others. And even if they don't like their profession, when they see results.
Yeah, I say that NLP gives you a real power that you can use to change your life, and you have this opportunity in every moment of your life to change it. But most of people choose not to. They just live in their comfort zone. But this training helps you see things differently and find solution easier. You can see the world differently.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And when you see things differently,
Then things are different.
then the things you see.
Things are different.
When you change the way you see things,
Those have
the
always
things you
been
see change.
human.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is so true. I play that game with my son again. By the way, my son is. I think I'm teaching him NLP. I think he's teaching me NLP. Every time we're on a road trip somewhere, he loves to play this game called I Spy, right? And he's like, Daddy, let's play I Spy. I'm like, okay, sure, let's play. You start first. And he says, I spy with my little eye something yellow. And then he's got his eye on something yellow that he sees on the road, maybe a yellow truck or whatever. And I've got to find the yellow thing he's looking at. And then it's my turn. I say, I spy with my little eye something blue. We go on that way. And the amazing thing about it is, when you just play that simple child game, you realize that as soon as you've got something that your brain is looking for, everything that matches that just pops out at you.
It's just like you buy a new car. All of a sudden, most of the cars on the freeway are like yours.
Suddenly they appear.
Suddenly, yeah. And it's not that anything changed. It's just your awareness changed.
I used to think that like Tesla started producing more cars. Yes.
It's you're focusing on that, so your focus changes.
Right.
And NLP, I know some people think that NLP is it is magical. I call it actually magical, but it's nothing new. It's everything that we've done in the past, we've been doing. However, we didn't know how we did it. We were doing it unconsciously. Right. Now, NLP brings it to your consciousness so that you do it with volition to get the result that you want.
And that gives us as trainers to give this knowledge and opportunities, to the mass people, which they were not exposed to that before. And I always tell to everybody that come to my training, if you will only take one thing from this training, take the cause and effect.
Absolutely.
Take the cause and effect.
Yes.
Just be at cause for your life, and everything else will follow. Because once you are the effect, you just give away the power of change and the power on your life. You just hand it to somebody else.
That is so true.
This is.
I also tell them that along with that is, you're always at cause. You're always at cause. The only question is, are you aware you're at cause? So it's like, you're always in the driver's seat of your car. Are you driving is the question. Or are you pretending you're a passenger and just crashing into everything that happens along your way and wondering how? So you're never actually in the passenger seat. You are always driving. The only question is, are you asleep at the wheel or are you awake at the wheel and consciously directing your life to where you want it to go?
And more than that, if we want to know,
I would say who's driving the bus.
Who's driving the bus?
But you know what? Even the driver of the bus must know the destination.
Mm-hmm.
Even navigation system, this is a high tech, cannot take you anywhere if you don't give it the destination. And it doesn't matter if you're in Compton or in Beverly Hills. You don't put the destination Las Vegas, you're not gonna get there. It doesn't matter where you came from. And that's an analogy that I love to use because, in my opinion, where you came from, it's only an excuse. Where you want to go to, it's the power. It's the power.
And where do you want to go is really a good question